very exciting because we're going to learn a new mashal that is not used many times in Chassidus, and more importantly, we're going to learn a new meaning for Sovev Kol Almin. What it means that the light that surrounds all worlds. What does it mean that it's surrounding? So we started last week. We're in, you know where we are. Ufchinat Sovev Kol Almin, page 11 here. Okay.
Yeah.
Ufchinat Sovev Kol Almin. So until now, we saw the Memale, and we actually read this, so we'll just do this quickly. הוא האור וחיות אלוקי שאינו מתלבש תוך אלמין ממש, is the light that does not integrate into the world. ואין פירוש סובב עולה וסובב מלמעלה. סובב doesn't mean that it's surrounding from above, אלא שהוא גם כן תוך אלמין, rather it's also in the world. אלא שאינו מתלבש בהם. But it does not integrate into the objects in the world. It doesn't integrate, meaning it doesn't appear or reveal itself based on their ability to integrate it, based on their ability to contain that light. We said the main mashal for Memale, for the light that fills our world, is the life force of the soul in the body. So that the soul is one, and then in the eyes you get eyesight, and in the hands you get action, and the feet you get motion, and all these things are revealed in each organ based on what each organ is able to integrate from the soul. That's called Memale. But in the Sovev...
So the whole world is not for an individual person, right?
Right.
So how do you get hashpa'ah from it?
Everybody does, because that's how we're alive.
How?
What do you mean?
Where's the...
It's like asking the question, how do you get sunlight? If you have any kind of life if you're anywhere on the surface of the earth, you get sunlight. That's all.
So like the sun is shining on everybody.
Shining on everybody equally.
So Sovev is also shining on everybody.
Right. Except that we see that in the sunlight there are beings that integrate it better than others. Okay? Plants, for instance. So they have chloroplasts, and so they're able to integrate the sun's light and to make it into something. Human beings, I guess, use the energy to synthesize vitamin D,
right.
Yeah, or that hormone, whatever it is, called vitamin D. I just saw yesterday something very interesting about sea slugs. They didn't know this until a year ago. How could you not know this? Do you know that sea slugs decapitate themselves? Have you ever heard of anything like this? They take their body off. You've seen a...
Empty shell.
No, you've seen whatchamacallit, a little lizard.
Yeah.
Take its tail off, right? That's called autotomy.
Why does it do that?
Because it's trying to escape, right? So if you catch it by the tail, it lets go of the tail and it runs off.
Okay.
And then it grows a new one back. So until now, that was what was known, that there are animals who will do autotomy. They'll take a part of themselves off to survive. It turns out that the sea slug will take its head off. Now, you're not taking the head off, you're taking the body off. They take the body off. Why?
And the head grows a new body.
And the head grows a whole new body in 3 weeks. So granted, the body is not so complex, but it's pretty complex. It's not like growing cabbage. It's a real living organism. It's big also. We've never seen this. They only discovered this a year ago. Why does it do it? Apparently it does it because the body is too full of parasites. So it gets rid of the body and it grows a new one. No worries. If I'm sick, I'll just grow a new body. So that's interesting in and of itself. The reason I brought it up is because they also have another quality, another talent that I don't know if anybody else in the animal kingdom has. They do kleptoplasty. Kleptoplasty. Klepto is to steal, right? Plasty is to be plastic, like to be able to... They steal chloroplast, no relationship, even though it sounds the same, from algae that they eat. What does that mean? They don't digest the chloroplast. The chloroplast becomes part of their body. And they integrate it. That's amazing. So
where do these things live?
In the sea.
Yeah, but where?
I don't know.
Deep in the Atlantic or?
No, I think it's in the Pacific more, but because all this stuff was done in Japan, so I'm assuming it's just close to Japan. But it's an amazing thing. It's exactly what the Torah describes as what will happen to us eventually. The Shekhinah is everywhere. We can't integrate it.
The luz will grow a new body.
Maybe the luz will grow. Maybe the luz is like the head. It'll grow a new body. And more importantly, that body, when you will have chloroplasts, not chloroplasts for the sun, but chloroplasts for the Shekhinah. Some kind of way to integrate the light of the Shekhinah that we don't have today. Unbelievable. The fact that everything exists in the world already is always bewildering. There's an example of everything the Torah is saying. There's already an example of it in the world. And the truth is, we don't find it until we're ready to understand it. That's the way I understand these things. That you don't find the natural specimen or phenomena until you're ready to do the same thing spiritually. It serves as, like we talked about, like the Baal Shem Tov holding the sugar in order to feel the sugar spiritually. You need to see it in order to begin to do it yourself, to be able to do it. But even to think of that I could grow a new body. So obviously a human being doesn't have to do it like a sea slug. They sever the head from the body. It's like a will. They have a will to do this. It's unbelievable. And then the head can still move a little. So you see in the videos that they shot that the head moves around the body, and then it leaves. The body's still somewhat alive because it's a slug, so there's still some life force there. Anyway, ridiculous. So that was a beautiful thing I saw yesterday. Really amazed by it.
Unbelievable.
Okay, so that's ממלא, that's סובב. כמו שכתוב ולא תשמעם את הארץ אני מלא. אני דווקא. Even though it says that I fill the heavens and the earth, the I there, I fill, God saying about himself, is not talking about the ממלא, it's talking about the סובב. שאין בחיות ההוא בחינת התחלקות כלל, because it means that I am the same everywhere. And that's סובב. That's what it means, the surrounding light. It's the same everywhere. Like the sun's light is the same everywhere. אני ראשון ואני אחרון, קדמון לכל הקדומים. מה שאין כאן בחינת ממלא כל המין ובחינת גבול. But the ממלא, the light that fills our worlds, we know that is like a limit, a limited light. And limit means that it comes integrated. You only can get from it what you're ready to get from it. מהלך תקשנה, רגלי החיות, and there the heavens are not simple, but rather there's a distance from here to there, and everything is limited. There are limits, there are borders and things. וזהו הרוממך שעצמותו ומהותו מרומם ונוסעת אין קץ ותכלית אלוקאי שבחינת האור והאיכות שנמשך מבחינת סובי כל מין ועל ידי המלך שהמלך שמו נקרא להם כמשל המלך שרק שמו והתפשטותו על מדיינות וממשלתו. And we said that this explains what does it mean הרוממך אלוקאי המלך. I will exalt you Hashem my God, that the Sovev becomes my God. The Sovev becomes my God, meaning that at some level the surrounding light is integrated into reality. That's the goal of everything. That it should come down in a way that it can be integrated. והמשכה זו שמבחינת סובב כל מין להיות מבחינת מלכותך מלכות כל עמים על ידי ישראל למלך בלא עם ודוד אמר המקרא הזה בעד כלל ישראל ומלכה אלוקי הוא על ידי המלך. So the fact that the Sovev comes down in order to give life to this world, in the way the same sun comes shining down in order to give energy and life to the world, that is done by the Jewish people, and that David said, he said it for all the people of Am Yisrael. Okay, now we're coming to the interesting part today. So we're going to skip over those parentheses. Okay. We're going to go to page 12. צריך להיות הכוח הזה בנפש. The second line. שעל ידו יומשך בחינת סובב כל עמים להיות בחינת מלכות. In order to take the sovev, the surrounding light, that has no limits, and to bring it down into malchus, to bring it down into kingdom, to bring it down into the mamala, into something that can be integrated. להחיות נבראים בעלי גבול, so they can give life to beings that do have limits, to finite beings. ועל פי מה שכתוב, 7 ימים תאכל מצות לחם עוני. This relates to Pesach. So he found a very interesting way to get us to Pesach here. Why? Because we have a mitzvah to eat matzah 7 days. Right? In another place it says 6 days. So what do Chazal say? That the first day is the Oraisa, the first day is from the Torah that you have to eat, and the other 6 days are only the Rabbana. And that's how Chazal interpret the discrepancy between the two verses. But what everybody agrees is that matzah is lechem oni. It's the poor man's bread. What do we mean by this? שכדי לקבל התורה בשבועות פנים בפנים, אחרי יציאתם ממצרים שהיה בבחינת אחוריים, נצטוו לספור ספירת העומר 7 שבועות, ובשבוע הראשון לאכול מצה דייקה. So he says it's part of a whole process. You eat the matzah for 7 days, because when they came out of Egypt, so the first 7 days, when they came out of Egypt, they only ate 1 day. The rest of the days, they ate from what was left over. That's also like a source for the 6 days that we eat Durabana. But the problem was that when they came out of Egypt, they were not ready yet to receive Hashem's light. They weren't yet ready for a revelation. They were what we call Vayakhel-Pekudei. They were not facing God. Meaning their mindset was such that they were facing nature. They were facing, the way that a slave thinks about the world. And you have to change your whole mindset. You have to switch the way you look at things. So this the matzah did during the 7 days. And really, the matzah was followed by really 7 weeks. Not just 7 days of eating matzah, but 7 weeks. Only the first week do you need the matzah. So what happens in the other 6 weeks? And so that's what he's setting up here to understand. But the whole process, he says, is related to going from achorayim to panim bepanim, going from back to face to face. And again, back to back.
The problem is they ate the matzahs for 30 days.
What?
They ate the matzahs for 30 days. And then the mon started.
Okay. So again, we eat it just for 7 days. That's what was left over for forever. It could be that what they ate extra days was just because there was nothing else to eat, but it wasn't part of the mitzvah. It wasn't. But again, the stress here is that it takes you from back to face. So if you're not facing God, the matzah is going to give you the ability to turn around. So the moment you hear this, when I reread it this morning, so it came to me that sovev also means the sovev. It also means to turn something around. I hadn't thought of that before. That sovev, again, the classic meaning, the exact meaning of sovev means the light that surrounds our world. It means it doesn't integrate. It's the same for everybody, and it's called sovev because it's round, because the circle is round, and all the points in the circle are the same. You can't say one is up and one is down. It makes no difference. That's why it's called sovev. But suddenly it occurred to me, when he uses it in this context, that there's an additional meaning, that sovev has the ability to do itapcha. Sovev has the ability to turn you upside down. It's sovev. It can turn you. And here he's saying it. That's what he's saying. That in order to be able to go from back to back, not facing God, not seeing God, to seeing God, being face to face, for that you need the matzah 7 days, and the whole 7 weeks of the Omer. How does it work? The animal soul has 7 negative faculties. וכל אחת כלולה מכולם 7 פעמים 7 מ"ט. And each one is inter-included with all the others. So you have 7 times 7, 49. The 7 are, of course, the chesed of the animal soul, and the gvura of the animal soul, and the tiferes of the animal soul, and netzachot, yisod, and machus of the animal soul, and each one is inter-included. וזהו עניין העומר שבא מן השעורים האכל בהמה בחינת נפש הבעמית. That's why on the day after Pesach, when we start reading, when we start counting the Omer, we bring the korban of barley. Why? Because barley is the food of animals. This we talked about a lot. Okay. And then in the 7 weeks, we use these 7 weeks that are called the counting of the Omer, the counting of the barley, in order to turn around, to transform the faculties of the animal soul, chesed shebechesed, and so on. על ידי שמאיר ממשיך בהם בחינת אור, כמשל הנר שדוחה החושך, by bringing down the light. So which light are we bringing down? What's the light that we're bringing down? The light that we're bringing down is the light of the Sovev. The light of the Sovev is what is able to transform it. So the fact that you don't feel anything, that's how we explain all the mitzvahs, but here it's even stronger. In all the mitzvahs, when I do a mitzvah, so what kind of light is being brought down? What kind of revelation of Hashem is being brought into the world? The answer is the Sovev, because all the mitzvahs, they're without feeling. Without feeling means that it's a Sovev, because it's not integrated. I can't sense it. I can't understand how the mitzvah acted in the world. I don't see it. But the mitzvah has the ability to change me. And even though I'm only doing some physical act.
But the Sovev or Mamale is the same light.
No, it's 2 different aspects of Hashem. What do you mean it's the same light? Everything we're saying here is that it's 2 different...
But it's still the light of Hashem. Only one light from Hashem.
No, so that you're ignoring the fact that we see multiple appearances or instances of how Hashem appears in the world. He appears as Havaya, he appears as Elokim, he appears as Kel, he appears as Shakai.
He chooses to reveal himself.
So there's
but
also...
it's still only in the end one essence of Hashem.
Okay, just the same way that the neshama is really in the end is only one. So what?
But you want to say the difference is not the light itself, but the way that it's revealed.
So we talked about this, a big sugya in Kabbalah and Chassidus, about whether it's the vessel that paints the light in a different color, or whether the light itself. So it depends on where you're talking. In the lower, after the tzimtzum, for certain, it's different lights. It's different appearances. That's what the tzimtzum allows. That Hashem can reveal himself in completely different ways. Yeah. After the tzimtzum, for certain, everybody agrees that it's not the mashal that they use, the parable, the metaphor that they use is water in a cup, in a glass cup. And so either the water is colored, or the glass is colored, or both are colored, or neither are colored. So there's 4 different options. So all 4 different options are correct, depending on where you're talking, and on what level of revelation of godliness you're talking. So in the lower levels, both the cup, the glass, is colored, and the water, the liquid, is colored. Both of them are colored. So what does that mean? It means that Hashem is revealing himself in a different way. You're right that at the very, very top, everything is clear. In fact, at the very top, there's no liquid even. There's no glass. There's nothing. It's just Hashem. You can't even say that he's being revealed. He's not being revealed in any way. But when you're talking about the revelation, you can't discount that the revelation appears in many different ways. Hashem appears in many different colors, as it were. That's one of the meanings of sfira is to count. Okay, like usfartem lachem. Sapir also means a gem. It's a gemstone, a sapphire. But simple meaning is sfira is to count. Okay. What does that have to do with anything? I can say about the numbers the same thing. You can say all the numbers are in infinity. There's no real difference between 1 and 2. In infinity, they all They all have no meaning, no separate meaning. But look at all the math that we do when we do separate 1 from 2 and 2 from 3 and so on. In the end, you could say there's only one number. It's just one. Everything is just one. And the Baal Shem Tov also says this about the letters. That Aleph and Beis are really the same thing. Why are they really the same thing? Because a Beis is just 2 Alephs. Okay, but if you would just write Aleph, 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 that wouldn't be much of a language.
But there is such a language.
Yeah, it's binary. It's called binary. Yeah, you can do that. In fact, you could study that. And not only can you study it, I'd say that all of modern mathematics, in a certain sense, is dependent on being able to write things in binary. But then, in order to make any sense of it, to have a separate world, you have to convert it back into hexadecimal or into some other way, and then suddenly there's different letters. But it's a very good muscle for understanding what it means that there's only a Shem. Hashem shows himself twice, it becomes a base. He shows himself 3 times, it's a gimel. What in the world does that mean? If I use the example of binary, so I can begin to understand what that means. That it's my interpretation that says that Hashem appearing 3 times, it means this and that. Yeah. It's a very good thing. So it turns out that the Sovev is what's doing the Tapcha. The Sovev is what's transforming the faculty of the animal soul into something different than what it was before. And you do this by counting. And you do this by counting the days. So that's what happens. V'zeu sfartem leshon he'ara ve'or. And that's why it's called counting, because sfartem also means, like we said, like the sapphire, it means to bring light. Ve'omrim b'chol yom hayom. Hayom is also light, right? Hayom. Whenever you say hayom, you mean that there's light. Okay? Yom is light. Okay? La'or kara yom, ve'lachosher kara layla. The day, the light he called day, and the darkness he called night. So you see that the word day is a synonym for light. So when I say Hayom Yom Achad LaOmer, today is one day for Omer, I'm bringing down a light. What light am I bringing down? The light that I'm bringing down. And again, that I don't feel. We said before that you don't feel it when you count. When you're bringing down the light that's coming into the vessel. The vessel is the words that you're saying. But the light that's coming down is what you're drawing down when you say Hayom Yom. And the light that comes down is higher than the faculties of the animal soul. And it transforms, for instance, the love. So instead of being love of things that are opposite to Hashem, then it becomes love of God. What does it mean, mimachorat Shabbat? You should count the day after the Shabbos. Really, what it's trying to say is milemala mibchinat hamidot.
Can you just say that paragraph again? Sorry.
What?
Can I just repeat that?
Which part?
Just the paragraph.
V'zeu sfartem from the beginning. Lashon ha'ara ve'or. So that's why it says you shall count the days of the Omer, because to count also means to light.
Okay.
To bring light down, to illuminate. V'omrim b'chol yom hayom. Hayom. Today is such and such an amount of days. Why do we say Hayom? Because Hayom is light. The light that we're bringing down is light that is superior. It's higher than the light of the faculties. The faculties are integrated light. Because when I love chicken, I feel that I love chicken. So it's integrated. I know that I love it. Okay? But the light that's coming down is flipping it. And then it turns out that on the flip side of loving chicken is loving God. Because I'm not interested in the chicken, I'm interested in God. Okay. So that's what's happening when we count the Omer. So we just added that another way that we see it is that we don't sense that we're bringing down light. All we feel is the words that we're pronouncing. Like any mitzvah, we only feel the memalit part. We only feel the act itself. But the act itself is drawing down the surrounding light. And again, the idea here is that soviv is the only thing that can flip it over. It's almost like the soviv is adding another dimension that wasn't there. We talked about this. That if you only have two dimensions and you have a piece of paper, so you can never flip it over. So we have only 3 dimensions, let's say. So or 4 dimensions. But to churn, or here's the classic example is, can I turn my right hand into my left hand? So no amount of flipping it over will turn my right hand into my left hand. There's no way of doing it. But in mathematics, the way we say it is that if you could take your hand and move it through one more dimension, then you could flip it completely and make it into your right hand. Into my left hand in this case. You need another dimension. So that's what the light that surrounds gives you. It gives you another dimension so that you can flip things over. So really, when you say zelu madze, when you say God created the good and the bad, one opposite the other, what you're saying is that there are 2 sides of the same coin. And if you don't have another dimension, you can't flip the coin over. But if you do get another dimension, you can flip it. And suddenly it turns out that what until now was serving you to seek your own benefit and so on, you're looking for the mundane benefits of the world, it suddenly becomes that you're looking for the godliness in the world. Like we learned, you can't have the transformation without first having some kind of subjugation. You have to submit the side that is seeking material enjoyment. And you have to subdue it. And that's called bittul. Shu b'chinat bitul batel retzoncha. You nullify your will to Hashem. V'chanoda she'yi efshar liot hitavut yesh miyesh. In the same way that you can't have, this is very interesting, you can't have one thing transforming into another, one thing, a being transform into another being, without having in the middle a state of nothingness. There has to be a state of nothingness in the middle. That's the bittul. That's the nullification in between. And that we've talked about in many senses. What's the usual mashal? Ki mishal hagarin hanizra ba'aretz. The usual mashal, the usual metaphor that's brought in Chassidus, is like the seed that's planted in the earth. Shemitrekev tchila v'nasa b'chinat ayin. That it first has to rot, and after it's rotted, then it can grow. So the seed is one thing. It's one being. It's not a growing being. It's just inert. It doesn't do anything. It just sits there. And the plant that comes out of it is a different being altogether. Okay? So has to happen for the seed to turn into a plant? It has to rot. It has to have nullification. It has to go through itkafia, through subjugation. It subdues its first nature. The first nature has to be gone, and if the first nature is not gone, then nothing new can come out, can sprout out. And then once the seed has rotted and its first form is gone, then the power of growth inherent in the earth and the ground can make it grow into many seeds, and not just into seeds, but into fruit, into leaves. Things that weren't in the seed to begin with. But now he gives a second mashal that's not brought many times. I don't remember where else we saw it, but we saw it in the last 2 years. We saw it. So in Likutei Torah, it's probably there. I need to do a search to see it. Nachen Amru Razal, therefore the sages have another saying. They say about the chick coming out of the egg. Ki gagavil, that when it's mixed up or being formed, afra be'almahu, it becomes like rotted. It becomes like the earth. It's like nothing. What are they talking about? So the Gemara is in Tmura. It's interesting. Here he didn't really. Oh yeah, he did. You didn't hear. He brought part of it. Tmura Lamed Aleph. There's a machlokus between Rabbi Eliezer and Chachamim. And the machlokus is, what if a chicken, or in this case, Rashi says, not a chicken because that wouldn't work too well for his example, but a dove. a pigeon. A pigeon can be brought as a korban, can be brought as a sacrifice. But the chicken is a treifa. Treifa means that it's not going to live. It's got a broken wing, whatever causes a pigeon to not be able to survive 30 days. I think in the case of a bird, it's 30 days. I think it's 30 days. It's 24 hours. I'm not sure. In any case,
Yeah. It has time to lay another egg.
That probably is not true because here from the sugya it doesn't seem to be that's the indication.
That's what it says.
So then the question becomes, what if it lays an egg? and the egg, from the egg hatches a chick. Can you bring the chick, according to Rashi, as a sacrifice? According to Tosfos, he's not talking about sacrifice, he's talking about eating it.
But the fact that the mother laid the egg proves that it wasn't a treifa.
Why? Again, that's why I just said that that's not the... that doesn't work. According to the sugya, that's not the sign of a treifa. Treifa is how long it'll live. I don't know if that takes it out of...
So in the sukenis, because it passed.
Anyway, you added a kink into the whole thing, and I don't think it's... I think there's a problem with it.
Okay.
We have to think...
Maybe
to see.
I
Nobody here mentioned it. I didn't see that.
Maybe I misremembered.
Yeah, it could be. I don't know. In any case, a treifa definitely can give birth because an animal treifa gives
Not
birth.
treifa, misukenis.
That's something else. I'm talking about treifa. Treifa is one that you are not allowed. Misukenis you are allowed to eat. A treifa means that there's one of the types of tareif of being not kosher is that the animal is unhealthy and it's going to die. So you can't eat it. You also can't bring it as a korban. You can't bring it as a sacrifice. So there's a machlokus between Rabbi Eliezer and Chachamim. Rabbi Eliezer says you can't bring this animal either as a sacrifice according to Rashi or as a korban according to Tosfos. Why? Because what are you talking about? The animal, not the animal. Sorry, the egg came out of the bird. And if the bird itself is a treifa, if the bird itself is about to die, so anything that comes out of it is like also about to die. So what do I care that later a chick hatched from it? Doesn't matter.
Oh, no, it's a new entity.
Oh,
It's a new world.
now you're bringing already trying to understand what the source of the machlokas is, or their dispute is. So the Chazal say, the sages say, that no, it's allowed. Their argument in the end is what the Alter Rebbe just quoted. Okay. Where did they say this? Again, Abaye says to Rava. Abaye and Rava now discuss what's the reasoning behind this dispute. So Abaye says to Rava, the reason that the sages say that it's something that it's permitted to eat or bring as a sacrifice this chick that hatched from the egg that came out of this treifa bird, when the egg is in its form as an egg, it's like the earth. What they're trying to say. They're trying to say it's the same thing as the seed rotting in the earth. The seed rotting in the earth means that the seed became like the earth. So he says the egg, after it's left the bird's body, is like nothing. It's like the earth. It's maslicha. It's masliach. Masliach means that it's lost its earlier form. What was its earlier form? Its earlier form was to be part of the bird. And now it's not part of the bird anymore. There's all kinds of questions you can add about this. For instance, one of the things that Abaye and Rava discuss is what about a sheep that is a treifa and it gives birth to a sheep. Okay. Is the offspring treifa also? No, it's not. There's nothing wrong with the offspring. So he says, but that's different. Why is that different? Because when in a mammal, the offspring is a separate entity to begin with.
Unless it's a ben pakua.
No,
If it's
that's a
ben
special din. That's a special
pakua,
din that it
so it's
receives.
dead, just like the mother was
No,
dead.
it's not dead. It's saying that it's
Halachically
nishchat.
it's dead.
It's nishchat as if it's shechut.
Right.
That's a special din in it because the mother wasn't shechut. Not that it's dead. It's like it's shechut. It's like it's slaughtered already.
Okay,
But that's a special din that we learn. But they say in general, if the mammal had an offspring, even though the mammal's about to die, the mother is about to die, the offspring is not considered to be treifa at all. Only if it was left inside and then taken out, then it's like it was. That's the ben pekua. But when it came out, it's like its own entity. So they say, why is it its own entity? Because even in the mother's womb, it was its own entity. How is it connected to the mother? It was connected by a umbilical cord.
Feeding tube.
Again, it's just it's like feeding it separately, but it's not part of the mother. It's very strange because in other places we say ubar yarechimo. That for other things, the fetus is considered to be part of the mother's body. But certainly when you're talking about whether it's treifa, whether it can't live, it has nothing to do with the mother. Maybe it received less sustenance, whatever, but it's not sick. And it doesn't have to necessarily be sick like the mother. Yeah.
No major fault.
Yeah. It's very interesting because now when you're talking about, like, for instance, viruses, so the viruses do infect the fetus. And if the mother is sick, the child comes out sick. That's very interesting. That's a switch on what Chazal were saying here. And there are certain things.
No, maybe the fetus itself was infected, not because.
How could it be infected when it didn't breathe?
It was infected from what it took from the
course.
mother, but it's not because of the mother. It's because of the virus. It happened to be the way it got the virus was the mother passed it on, but not because of a
Necessarily.
not because of a defect
Right.
in the mother,
Okay.
and also the Uban didn't necessarily need to get
I agree 100%. You're right. So we see that most of the mothers that give birth to babies, even if they had corona, the babies don't have corona.
Right.
But some of them do. Some of them were infected. Okay. But he was infected in the same way he could be infected by anything. But it doesn't mean that whatever happened to the mother happens to the baby, to the fetus. In any case, what do we get from this? We get a very interesting thing. It's a second mashal, second metaphor that's not used, a second parable that's not used so much. I don't remember it being used maybe more than once. In some ways it's more powerful, that the egg, in its state as an egg, is like the earth. It's like in a state of bittul, it's in a state of nullification. And that's the only thing that allows the chick to come out afterwards. That if it doesn't enter into this state, then the chick doesn't come out. So this is all in Tmura on Daf Lamed Aleph Aleph.
If you take an animal and you kill it, you've done Tzar Balei Chayim. I'm not talking about shechting it, right? You did something to hurt it.
Mm-hmm.
Take an egg and you throw it out the window.
Didn't do anything.
It didn't do anything. It's not
No.
alive.
No. It's like a fowl. But here, when they're saying that it's a fowl, they're not saying it's a fowl, it doesn't have any feelings. They're trying to say that even though it was formed from the mother, it's no
It's
longer
lost
with the
that connection.
form
It's
of
lost
the
the connection.
the mother's form is no longer in it. That's very interesting because today we wouldn't say that. What would we say? We say, what are you talking about? We don't care about the egg. What we care is about a little bit of DNA that's inside. And the moment that we're talking about DNA, of course the DNA is from the mother. Where else did it come from? But the DNA here is in the stem cell form. It's in a different state, and that's why it can grow. That's why it can become something new.
So these slugs are all stem cells?
Right? That's what they're trying to find out. What do these slugs do exactly? If they're all stem cells, then they probably can't. How do you differentiate?
Have we looked in the loose to see if the loose is a stem cell?
So that's one of the understandings. Luz would be a stem cell, but even if it was a stem cell, how could the cell survive? Yeah, people who have now been in the world for 5,000 years. So how could there still be a stem cell remaining? So the simple answer would be that I guess that we're not talking about something physical. We're talking about something spiritual. But then the question becomes: so what spiritually even has this type of what spiritually in the world acts as? It's almost like you're talking about something that in the end doesn't mean anything to us. Again, what would it mean for the luz to suddenly form into a body? What is that? What is it talking about? I say that. What does that mean?
Don't ask me difficult questions. I have one small question before we finish.
Yeah.
You and me are sitting here. There's Sovev, right?
Everywhere.
All around us, right? So just, you're getting the same Sovev as I'm getting the same Sovev. Okay. But you're also getting Mamale, and I'm getting Mamale. How come I don't get the hashpa'ah of your Mamale and you don't get the hashpa'ah of my Mamale? Where, how does it get to you, yours, and mine to me, and how come it's unique that it's not connected from one person to another person?
You said the difference between Memale and Sovev is Memale is Gvul, and Sovev is no Gvul.
Okay.
Limits or no limits, borders or no borders.
Okay.
So when you're talking about Memale, you're talking about there being a border between things. They're separate. They become separate. So each thing receives its light. The way
where does this come from? Where is this light coming from?
That's what the neshama is giving.
So
The Sovev is giving even.
it's like coming down looking for Moshe Ganun till he finds it.
So again, that's why he said, don't think about it as coming down. Again, the metaphor of the sun is very nice, but don't get bogged down by it. It's everywhere. It's everywhere at the same time. The way to understand it is that Memala is like a field. The whole difference between Memala is, the Sovev is like a field. Sovev is like a field. When something, you put different cell phones in the air, and they're all in the field of the antennas that are broadcasting. Forget about cell phones. It's too complex for people. The simple example is what used to be a radio. So the air is full of radio waves. They're not here or there. You're sitting in a field. In a field, you can't say it's here or there. You can say the brightness of the field diminishes as you get further away from the source. But here you have to imagine like the cosmic background radiation that we don't know where the source is. There's no source. We don't see the source. Just everything is permeated equally with the same amount of radiation. And wherever you put your radio and you turn it on, you can get the channel of the station that you're listening to. So you set it to 99 megahertz and you hear what's at 99 megahertz. Anybody who puts their radio next to you, they can all get the 99 megahertz. There's no difference.
Or something else.
Forget about the something else for now. Just I'm saying that everybody can share the same information. The same station is coming through to everybody. That's like a Sovev. Now you're saying I have a more complex radio and I can also turn the knob. So instead of just being at 99 megahertz, I can push it to 100. And now I put it in the same field and I see that, whoa, there's another station that says something completely different at 100 megahertz. So there's two ways of saying it. Either the original field is more complex than what I thought, or there's a few fields here, one on top of the other. In the end, in physics today, we don't say that there are many fields here together. We say that the general time-space continuum has been affected, or the general electrical field has been affected in such a way that it becomes a composite of all the different fields together. It contains all the different stations at the same time. 99 megahertz, 100 megahertz, and everything in between. And so whatever you tune your radio to, that's what you're going to hear. So the Sovev contains everything. It contains everything you want. The chiddush is that in order to be able to hear one particular part of it, you have to have the mechanics inside you, inside your radio, to be able to tune yourself to one thing or another thing. But now, once the one radio is broadcasting one thing, you're hearing one thing on one radio. One's on 99, the other one's on 100. Okay? And now you tell them, but you're both using the same field. So why aren't you saying the same thing? You should be saying the same. I don't understand. I am tuned to 99. I'm tuned to 100. So we're getting different messages. We're getting different information. Human beings are the same way in that sense. That every human has different capacity for what they're going to take from the Sovev. So the Sovev is one. It contains everything. But the human beings are different. The vessels that are accepting it, that are taking it, they're different. So there's a there's a limit between you and me. I have what I take from it, and you have what you take from it. The fact that we can communicate, that's very nice. It's like if you would put a station, like two radios, and the two stations would be talking one to another using the radios. You could do that. Theoretically, you could do that.
Yeah, when I used to give lectures, I used to show a slide